What's up, Titans fans, and welcome to another episode of Titans Global Podcast. I'm your host, Maximus Titan Fan, and with me, as always, is my good buddy Link. What's up, bro?
What's going on, guys? Good to be here. Another Titans win, so we get to talk some positive stuff, but we're going to get into all of it. Just make sure first hit that subscribe button, give us a like, give us a share, and get in the comment section. We want to hear your guys' thoughts. Big game, big win. Let us know what you think, the good, the bad, all of it. So we'll jump right into it.
Titans win 32-27. Who would have guessed that?
Yeah, if you told me it was a 32-27 game, I wouldn't think you're talking about a Titans game on either side, winning or the losing side of that. I was proven wrong. I got the Houston score right. I did have them down at 27, but I was pretty bold in saying I don't think the Titans can score over 17, and they proved me wrong. I asked them to prove me wrong, and they did. So good for them on that front.
Yeah, I will say I have noticed now, I think it's either 4 or 5 weeks in a row I have been correct on the over-under. So, take that for what you will. I don't know what I don't know what that means, but whatever. Anyway, first thing I want to talk about is I kind of already talked about it last week, so I'm just kind of rehashing a little bit. But Texans owner come out, talk some crap, said they had taken back the city of Houston, which I thought was weird, and that they had won back all their fans or whatever. And then we go down to Houston and spank the Texans in front of their home crowd.
Pretty nice. Sorry. I mean, it's a fan base that was not having a good day. I mean, they were jawing with players on the sidelines, and I mean, a lot of boos ringing out. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, this technically you're still alive in the division, which is kind of crazy to say. But this is a Texans team that they've now dropped a few. C.J. Stroud, obviously having some turnover issues that continued this week. So yeah, I mean for them to come out and say anything about any other organization at this point is just a little ridiculous in my mind. And I think now the Titans have opened the door. I didn't know if we'd see those Oilers jerseys this year. But after this one, I mean, you're feeling pretty good. You might see those Oilers jerseys back in Nissan Stadium at the home game against them.
Yeah, I would not be surprised, man. What's up, Scoob? I would not be surprised at all. There is definitely a rivalry there. And I think Bud Adams really is the one who started it, obviously. But it's just beautiful. I don't know. Did you see the meme where they were putting Amy's head on Bud Adams' body? Where I'm sorry, I get a kick out of stupid little crap like that. But, I mean, when you surf social media all day, which I don't necessarily do all day. I guess I'm telling on myself a little bit there. But when you do, man, there is a lot of very loud Texans fans out there this year. Last year it was mostly Jaguars, but I guess their play is they're quiet this year. They're like, you know what, just don't notice us. But yeah, Texans this year have been the ones jawing like crazy.
Well, and again, I mean, they were the front runner for the division. I mean, still are. I think they obviously have the best shot with the talent they've got. But I mean, look, we're looking at a very real scenario where if you look at their next few games coming up, like it does not get easy. They've got the Ravens on that schedule. They've got the Chiefs on that schedule, I believe. So, like, I mean, they're staring down the barrel of a pretty tough strength of schedule remaining. I mean, I think it's very possible to say that the winner of this division probably comes out with the losing record. This drops them to, I think, 7-5 with those games still left to play. Indy just lost. And I mean, if you're Tennessee, you're sitting there now at 3-8 thinking, statistically it's going to be tough. But if you win the majority of your remaining games, like it's not to say there isn't a chance at this division. And I mean, the Colts are thinking the same thing. So, if I'm Houston, they're going to have to look inward a little bit and do some self-evaluations because they thought they were going to come into the season and kind of run away with it. And with the early play from Tennessee and Indy, it kind of solidified that. But now they're having their own issues. So, yeah, I mean, rightfully so. Unhappy organization, unhappy fan base, and it's the road just gets tougher from here on out.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, man, this is the best time of year to be getting right.
Mhm.
Not again, there's some people online that they think they call it Project 9 and 8 or something like that. But I mean, I guess it's not out, completely out of the realm of possibility because we play Washington and mostly divisional opponents. I think it might be all divisional opponents after Washington, but I know that's mostly what we've got left. Washington doesn't have a really stout defense, so I mean, or especially on the back end, secondary wise. So it does look like we would be able to. But man, I just don't get those unrealistic expectations again, Titans fans.
No, absolutely not.
I've had to stamp mine down many a times, and we're going to talk about some of those unrealistic expectations and what I think now. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it on the whole. I don't know, kind of lost track of thought there.
Well, I'll say this on that front. I mean, if you're Tennessee now, and you think, okay, we can drop maybe one more and still have a shot. I mean, if nothing else, it keeps the players engaged because this was a pretty bad football team. That was everybody's thoughts on it, and they string a couple wins together. They start feeling good about themselves. But I'll say what impressed me most is just that no matter what's being said, no matter what the record is, you still have the coaches and the staff that show up every week. You have these certain players that show up every week, and I mean, they're not necessarily looking at playoffs, but they're not looking at draft either. Like these are guys that are going to come out, they're going to perform. We've seen young dudes step up and make plays. I mean, we played pretty much all backups in a secondary, and I think the secondary had a pretty good game. So there are things to be hopeful about. And yeah, I mean, if you're this team and you're trying to find something to motivate yourself moving forward the rest of the season, it's okay if we beat the Texans again and then we split with the Colts, beat the Jags, do what we're supposed to do there. I mean, you're sitting there where you're at least in that picture, so you're still giving yourself a reason to play and a reason to fight, and that's all you can look for at this point.
Yeah, I agree. And also, you kind of talked about it a little bit, but the main thing that made me so happy about this win, it wasn't so much about all these stats and all these things that we're going to talk about, but the adversity.
Mhm.
We got down, we kept fighting, get back up. And I mean, it just happened over and over and over again. There were things that were working against us the whole way. This was not unlike any other game, but for some reason, even though they were down, they just kept fighting. They kept having good play call. They kept mixing it up. I feel like this team is really all the pieces are starting to come together a little bit better. Still need an offensive line and a consistent quarterback. But anyway, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, if just to touch on that while we're there, I don't know which one you want to get to first, but quarterback play wasn't bad. I thought it was acceptable. We've seen a little bit more progression at that position, and then on the offensive line part, I mean, run blocking honestly was pretty excellent this game. Like I saw exactly what I wanted to see in the run blocking schemes. I thought NPF, he showed that he does still have some talent at that tackle position. He can be decent, and I mean, J.C. Latham probably had what was his worst game of the season, which he's still a rookie. You expected it was going to come at some point, but I mean, if that's his worst game this year, I'm okay with that. I can live with that because he's been consistent up to this point.
I agree. And to be honest, he was going up against what is it? I thought it was Daniel Hunter, but I guess it's like Daniel Hunter or something like that. I don't know. They were
Nil Hunter.
pronouncing it
Yep.
during the sure. Uh, no offense to him, man. He's a great football player. I don't mean anything by it. It's just I'm bad with names and some of the odd names that come out nowadays. I have trouble with. No big deal. Anyway, to talk about Will Levis a little bit. A lot of people are getting a little carried away again already. Crowning him already. That's a little bit quick, but I will say he has played extremely better the last 3 games since he's come back from injury, I guess is a better way of saying it. Last week at the half, he was 11 of 12, 177 yards and a touchdown with a 146 rating, which is fantastic. I wish he would have ended the game or came out and done a second half just like that. But, we get what we get. He finished the game with 18 of 24, 278, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a 123 rating. That is not bad. I think he also had a fumble. I don't have that in my notes, but I think he also had a fumble. But that's not really that bad, really. When you think about it, it's actually pretty good. But this is the other note I want to bring up real quick, and then we'll get your thoughts on this, Link. But pre-injury, post-injury stats. Pre-injury is 5 games, post-injury is 3 games, so it's a little. But in the pre-injury, he was 16. He averaged 16.6 attempts to 25 completions for 139 yards, 1 touchdown, 1.4 interceptions, 6.7 or 68.7 rating, and a 0.67 fumble, which these are average numbers, so just bear with me. But for these 3 games, 17 to 26, 249. 1.7 touchdowns, 0.67 interceptions, 111 rating, and a 0.67 fumble. Way better. We have to at least admit and give credit where it's due. He is playing the position better. What do you think?
I agree. I definitely want to see. Obviously, there's 2 more games to go before we can make a direct comparison, but I think he's definitely trending in the right direction. I'll say that. I mean, you've seen the progression. He does look more comfortable in the pocket. We've seen most of the ridiculous turnovers stop. There's just still a few things about moving at game speed and seeing the field and the pocket awareness that I'm still missing. But that's stuff that can be developed. So I'm okay with that. I mean, he just played a full season worth of games. I think the week before last, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I mean, he's still learning. You just got to learn when to let the ball go. I mean, 8 sacks is what they ended with, and I mean, I haven't gone back and watched the all 22, but off the top of my head, I would dare to say 5 of those are probably on him. Just not letting the ball go, trying to do too much. So just the awareness of, hey, it's 1st and 10. Let's throw this away instead of being behind the sticks and get to the next one. Now, to his credit, I mean, I think they were 40% roughly on 3rd and 7+. So they were able to overcome a lot of those mistakes and some of those sacks. But that's what I want to see for the rest of this year. I want to see if the pocket presence can develop a little bit, if he can continue to limit the mistakes. And then, in this game, you mentioned it earlier, being able to just let things go and move on to the next one. I mean, he throws that interception, which is a pretty bad interception, but he's able to come back from it. He's able to hit a Conquo, I think the next drive or maybe the one after. So, yeah, I mean, just staying out of his head, being able to let – because, I mean, you saw Stroud this game. He threw 2 interceptions, but he was still slinging the ball. Not afraid of throwing another one. I mean, he wasn't in his head. You could see him let it go. So that's what I want to see, is just the maturity and the pocket presence. That's what I'm looking for going forward. But like I said, we're definitely trending in the right direction. Still not ready to sit here and say that I feel any differently about him being the starter next year. Again, I want to see these things on a consistent basis, and I don't think I'll make that determination until we've got the stat line of that very last game.
I'll agree with you that I am cautiously optimistic. Mm-hmm. I guess if you even want to call it that. I'm an optimistic guy, so I guess cautiously optimistic for me is just being normal. I don't know. Anyway, my point is that he is, like you said, he's playing much better. But you talked about it, man, the pocket presence. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have very good pocket awareness. I mean, you even saw it in the first or second drive. He steps up, and I mean, he completely panics. You can see it all over his face. He had no idea what to do. Yeah. Those kind of situations you can't have. and I'm hoping that the Brian Callahan can kind of coach that out of him a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look just in comparison, I mean, it's fascinating to watch that game. And again, I'm not trying to give too much credit to C.J. Stroud. I don't think he played his best game either. But if you can see the difference in their confidence level when they have to step up in the pocket, if you watch C.J. Stroud on his throws, the way he's able to step up, shake off the pressure, know he's going to take a hit, release the ball, make those quick decisions. If his first read's not there, you see him check to his second read. You see him take the check downs if nothing's available. So just watching that game and kind of seeing because these are two guys from the same draft class. I mean, they've roughly had the same amount of time. Now, C.J. Stroud, obviously, he's been a starter for most of that, and he stayed pretty healthy. But if you just look at the difference in these guys, you can kind of see where Stroud is just like one step ahead of him. Just one step above, where he is a little bit more comfortable. He knows his reads. He knows the offense. And Will Levis, I mean, he's doing a really good job of going in the game, catching the ball, and making throws. I need to see him quarterback a little bit more. I need to see him read defenses, because on most of these picks and a lot of these throws, it's defenders just reading his eyes. I mean, it's very obvious where he's going with the ball the majority of the time. You see him stare down that first receiver, and then when that receiver's not there, he either throws it anyway, or it's like he doesn't know what to do. So just being able to feel more comfortable there, being able to know this offense, because you've seen the talent level. I mean, the guy can make the throws, the 67-yarders, the 80-yarders, the 98-yarders to Westbrook-Akine. Like, we've seen him make the throws. We know he's got the talent. I just need to see the skill develop along with that.
Yeah, and that's something else I was going to talk about, is his deep accuracy seems to be much better after the injury. I don't know. And somebody who was a guy I actually look up to in the Titans slyly said to me, it wasn't an injury. It was a benching. He's not like a Titans personnel or anything like that. He's not anybody that would know. He's just saying that because that's how he feels. I don't care how you look at it. Either way, it's been a positive. He's come back better after having some time to sit and basically watch Mason Rudolph not win a game, but not lose a game either. And I think that was the biggest lesson for him, was, look, we don't need you to go out there and be the best quarterback in the league. We just need you to go out there and not lose the game. And, if you can sprinkle in some of those Will Levis great long throws, that would be great every now and then. But that's really all I want from him, and on a consistent basis. That's the thing. And since we're talking about consistent basis, the most consistent producing football player on the team, who would you say it is?
Pollard. Yeah,
Boom.
hands down. I mean, that's Tony Pollard and Nick Westbrook-Akine. I mean, those two guys, they just continue to go out, do the right things, be available. I mean, Tony Pollard's directly winning football games for this team, if I'm being honest. I mean, his production, what he's able to do on offense, how he's able to take some of the pressure away from Will Levis. What was crazy to me, what I loved about this game, was those fake screen draw plays, because Houston sat down and they watched this tape and they knew that screen game was going to be pretty heavy going into this one. And Callahan had the know-all to sit down and say, look, they're going to be expecting these screens. We have a weapon in Tony Pollard. We're going to start doing this fake screen draw. And, I mean, it worked pretty much 100% of the time. So good on coaching for that, just recognizing that, if you're talking about production and if you're talking about just going out and doing what you're supposed to do, Tony Pollard is the MVP of that this year.
Yeah, that is the exact same answer for me, man. On this one, I think he had 119 on 20-something, 4, I think. I don't know. He had a 5-yard average. That's all I know. I saw a 5-yard average, and I went, damn, Had over 100 yards and a 5-yard average. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it was the 800+ yard game of his career. And I mean, if you watch this dude play, you're like, how is there just not more of these every single week? Like, this dude should be getting 100+. He should go over the century mark every single game. Just super productive.
Well, and I'm so happy to have somebody like him when you're missing a guy like Tajay Spears, and I hope we get him back next week. But just really happy with him. 800 yards over the season, 4 touchdowns, 4.3 yard per carry on the season.
Mm-hmm.
Homeboy's killing it. I love Tony Pollard. Love me some Tony Pollard. Sorry, yeah, I kind of drifted there a little bit. My bad. Calvin Ridley he's getting some better numbers. I don't know if it's all consistency, but it's getting better. 5 receptions on 6 targets for 93 yards. He's starting to look like an every game number 1 wide receiver. Mm-hmm. That's really all I wanted from him. So pretty happy with both those guys. Crazy stat on Ridley, last 5 games, 29 receptions, 451 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Yep. To put it in better perspective, his entire season is 36 receptions for 541 yards and 3 touchdowns. So most of his production has come in the last 5 games. Again, starting to look like the number 1 wide receiver we wanted in the beginning.
Yeah, well, I mean, he said it himself. When he was interviewed after that rough game, and he said, you got to get me the ball earlier. I've got to get in a rhythm. I need to be targeted in the beginning of the game, not just the end of the game. And we've seen them do that. So, I mean, I'm not all for taking your grievances to the media during locker room interviews, but whatever he did, it worked. Because I think after that game is when that stretch started that you just mentioned. So, good for him and good on the coaching staff realizing that, yeah, this dude is a number 1 on this team. You've got to treat him as such, get him the targets and let him make plays. So, I mean, I think every game he's had a 20+ yard reception since that point. So, yeah, I mean, he's doing something right. I can't be mad at it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. I mean, he might not catch all the balls that come his way. Like last week, his targets to receptions wasn't great. Much better this week, but he still had like 70-something yards last week on 5 receptions.
Yep.
Still not a bad week, not a bad day's work, but special team still sucks. I don't really know how else to say that. It's a major problem.
Except Nick Folk.
Yeah, well, except Nick Folk and Morgan Cox. Both those guys are doing great. Everybody else sucks.
When the most consistent and producing player on your special teams unit is 40 years old, you may have a problem.
Yeah, that's not
credit to Folk for being that guy. Credit to him for being that guy.
Yeah, man. Did you see we all saw it, but the on the return 80 yards, Dameon Pierce, I swear to God, he looked like Derrick Henry running through people. I was like, what? Even my Pee-wee team would be like, wrap him up. What the hell are y'all doing?
Yeah, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was Cedric Gray who, sees his first action and then has him pretty much dead to rights, and then you let him go. So I don't know. Something's got to change on that unit. I mean, it continues to be the bane of this football team. And I mean, let's be honest, that's what kept Houston as close as they were. I mean, special teams in this game gave Houston every possible chance to go win it.
Yeah, and almost gave him another chance. See, I don't think a lot of people are talking about this, but the onside kick at the end of the game, thank God it took a lucky bounce and went out of bounds. Because if it hadn't, Titans players had already touched the ball and not recovered it. 2 of them, as a matter of fact.
Yep.
So if any of the Texans player gets that ball, it's done. That's it. Yeah. We're either going into – well, no, we can't go into overtime, but still, point is we play on. the fact that that ball bounced out of bounds, literally, I looked at my wife and I was like, thank God, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was nervous the whole commercial break for that.
Is it time to start thinking about different options at punt returner?
Look, oh man, that's a toughie. One of my buddies asked me this question, and I said, "I'll be honest with you, man. I don't think we have a person on the team that could return the kicks any better than he is that we want to put in the position of a returner. Because let's face it, as a returner, you do take some shots. I mean, you're always taking shots, almost always, unless you call a fair catch. So I don't really want Tyjae Spears doing it because." He's a regular starter and he's injured right now. So that definitely is a no-no. None of the wide receivers I want doing it. None of the top three anyway. Maybe Bryce Oliver. Y'all want to give him a shot? Okay, I'm okay with that. But
Mason Kinsey's still sitting out there on a practice squad. So look, here's I'm joking a little bit. I'm mostly joking. Look. This is the first fumble lost by Jaquan Jackson, but it should be like the fourth.
Agreed.
He's been very fortunate to get some of these balls back. He's not looking it in the way that he should every single time. He's trying to make a play before he has the ball in his hands. And then the biggest thing to me is I don't know why he can't get through is just go north to south. It's not always in your best interest to run to the sideline and then the other sideline. I mean, yeah, that's going to work sometimes, but it's not college anymore. You can't out explode these guys. It's not going to happen. I mean, I just get north to south. Let your speed do the work because we saw one where he tried to cut it back and it was a penalty that backs him up. We saw another one where he probably should have let the punt go in the end zone toward the end of the game. He decides he's going to try to go again sideline to sideline. He gets blown up at, I think, the 10-yard line. So again, we talk about Will Levis and the awareness in the pocket. Like, we have a punt returner who seems he's also lacking a little bit of awareness at that position. So I don't know. I'm a huge Jaquan Jackson fan. I even said coming out of the draft that he might be the best value out of the entire draft. I still think that's a possibility down the road. I just think that right now you're having so many issues otherwise that I wouldn't be opposed to giving someone else an opportunity at this point because it just hasn't worked.
Well, here's my thoughts on that. First of all, he did it in college. So you're right. He should be pretty used to it. Although it is a different game. You can't go sideline to sideline like that.
Right, exactly.
90% of the time when you do that, you end up with exactly what happened and we get a penalty. So it never really works in the NFL because of blocking scheme, if nothing else. So more for me, that's on the coach for not coaching that out of him. Or like you said, switching him up. If he's blatantly going against your coaching, you got to change him up at some point. But obviously he hasn't yet, so the coaches aren't telling him not to go sideline to sideline. Or at least that's the way I perceive it. As far as I'm concerned, I would say 70% of the problems on special teams is because our special teams coach doesn't know what he's doing.
Well, and here's the other issue I have with that, because they were asked in the press conference, it was Callahan that was asked, have you thought about trying someone different at returner? And he said, yeah, we're not really in the, and I'm paraphrasing here, but basically we're not in the mentality of setting guys who just have one or two bad plays or one or two bad performances. And okay, but what have you done at right tackle? So it's the inconsistencies with the coaching, because I agree with you. I do think it's coaching, whether it's the first or second scenario. I think it's a problem in coaching. Obviously they see it differently because the special teams coach still has a job, and I can't figure out why. But yeah, I do think it is coaching on one level or another, but I also don't see the consistency on coaching because with this right tackle situation, if you have a bad play, we're gonna rotate in. I mean, middle of a drive, they're rotating in tackles. Now we didn't see that this week, but we've seen it in the past. And then the lack of doing that in other phases of the game is just, I don't know. For me, this coaching staff still seems a little bit discombobulated in certain areas.
Let me bring up another good point that I thought of the other day. In the offseason, we saw a lot of videos where Tyjae Spears and Ran Carthon were hanging out. Ran Carthon said many times that he likes Tyjae Spears on a personal level. Tyjae Spears has said he likes Ran Carthon on a personal level. So these are two guys hanging out with each other all the time. And Tyjae Spears, dang it, now I've lost this. Jackson comes from Tulane obviously they didn't just draft him because Tyjae Spears said they should. But they did. I mean, on the assumption that Tyjae Spears knew that he was a hard worker and all this kind of stuff, good character guy. And I'll be honest, though, if I was Jaquan Jackson and I was looking at my special teams like they are, I would be in my boy's ear as much as I could to be trying to influence Ran to get me somebody who's going to coach me a little bit better. I don't know if that's, just me trying to put crap together or if it's just something that actually would happen.
Yeah, I mean, possibly. But, I mean, look, Jaquan Jackson's a rookie, and Tyjae Spears is a second-year player. I mean, even hanging out, I don't think they have that kind of pool. I think at the end of the day, Bill Callahan makes these coaching decisions. Obviously, Carthon is in pretty good control of roster moves and roster guys and who he wants on this team. But I think when it comes down to coaching, Callahan has full control. I mean, you can see on the sidelines, Carthon isn't really in his ear. I don't think he's talking about gameplay because he's down there on the sidelines for pretty much every game. I've never seen
it. Gave him the old attaboy on the sidelines. You see that?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I think when it comes down to coaching and schemes, I think Callahan's in full control of that. My fear is, and maybe it's just, PTSD from the Vrabel days. My fear is that we get to a point because look, Callahan and this special teams coach go back. I mean, they're buddies. It's his buddy. And I don't want to get in a situation where we're scared to make a move because we're trying to protect friendships. Because, I mean, this is a business at the end of the day. And right now your business is doing poorly because one of your supervisors isn't producing. And if you look at it from that aspect, I think there needs to be decisions made. But that's just me. I mean, I'm not there at practices. I'm not there at camp. I'm not there on the sidelines during the games. But we've seen the same thing over and over and over. And we've seen them try different personnel. The different personnel hasn't worked. So for me, that just leaves coaching.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, there's still time to make that change. We'll see what happens in the offseason, whether someone's promoted, demoted, fired. I don't know. But you've got to hold it together for this last half of the season because it's a glaring issue and other teams are looking at it and that's where they're trying to take advantage of you on.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it's a real big problem, but I still think that if it becomes a big problem, if it even if it gets cleaned up at this point, I mean, I don't see how they can retain Colt Anderson. I don't see how Rand doesn't go to Brian Callahan and be like, look, man, you can't do this. This is the reason the last two head coaches of this franchise have been fired. Mm-hmm. Don't be an idiot. It's exactly what I would say to him, as my buddy. If that was my dude, I'd be like, yo, dude, look, don't be stupid, man. My boss has no problem canning your ass because you don't want to can one of your dude's ass.
Yep.
Let him go. Hang out with us, man. We got about a 40-second ad coming up. We'll be right back.
What's up, Titans fans? Maximus Titan fan here. Are you in need of professional excavation services? Look no further. Red Zone Builders has the expertise, experience, and equipment to handle all or any excavation project, big or small. Whether you need land clearing, site preparation, trenching, foundation excavation, or any other excavation services, they have you covered. Their team of skilled professionals will work diligently to ensure your project is completed safely, efficiently, and to your satisfaction. Trust the experts at Red Zone Builders to get the job done right.
Told you it was quick. Little 40-second ad for the sponsor. Gotta appease the sponsor. Just messing with you, Alex. Anyway, NWI. Let's get back to some positive stuff, man. NWI has been so reliable this season. Before the season, I even said we were putting unreal expectations. You hear me say that a lot on NWI. The reason that people didn't like him was because we were trying to make him a number 1 or number 2 when he's really a number 3 or number 4. I feel like NWI is making his case right now this season that he can be a number 2 target.
He's trying. Look, I think there's still a gap of talent at that position for him. I mean, this week wasn't bad. 6 targets, 2 catches. He still gets in the end zone. I don't know that he has the right attributes to be a number 2. I think he is better when he's kind of lost in that mix for a defense where you're focused on Ridley, you're focused on Boyd, and then all of a sudden, oh crap, here's Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Like, how do we let him get open? And I feel like a lot of his catches, if you go back and look, a lot of his big catches have been on busted coverages where it's like he kind of just gets lost in that mix. So I'm not saying he can't be a number 2. I agree. I think he's making a case for it. I just don't know if I'm ready to go into next season with Ridley and NWI in that order. Like, I think there still needs to be a move at receiver and kind of put him at that 3 or 4 position because he's going to be available. I just don't think he can be our staple next year at receiver. There has to be some better talent there overall.
Yeah, let me correct myself or anybody else that's thinking that I meant we should go into next season with NWI as our number 2. That is not what I think. Thinking that there might be some other teams that may think that he could be a number 2.
It's possible, yeah.
And if he keeps this up, he probably won't be playing for the Titans next year. He needs to chill out just a little bit, go a couple games without busting one. Tyler Boyd showed up.
Mm-hmm. Finally.
I don't know. He was, I was going to say, it's like the oldest rabbit out of the hat trick I've ever seen, or longest, excuse me. But he showed up well. 55 yards on like 6 targets. 6 receptions.
6 targets, 6
targets.
catches.
Yeah.
Caught 100% targets, yep.
Yeah, so, I mean, Tyler Boyd had a really good day. Didn't get in the end zone, but still, he looked good. I think his long was like 19. Yeah, mm-hmm. So that meant, let's see. That meant at least 2 or 3 of the passes were first downs. So good for him. Got good numbers there.
Yeah, the stat that stands out to me when you look at that receiving group this week is you had a long of 63 from Ridley, a long of 70 from Chig, a long of 36 from Westbrook-Ikhine or 38, and then a long of 19 for Boyd. It's the explosive plays. I think that's how this offense and these receivers have to operate. When you have a quarterback with the arm talent of Levis, you have to put those talents to use. I think that's something that they figured out over the last couple weeks. So the explosive plays, I mean, the 20-plus yard plays, that's how you're going to win these games. I think Pollard does a great job of picking up that necessary yardage. I just think that Levis, instead of these screens, instead of these dump offs, I want to see them continue to do what we talked about and move the ball downfield, push the ball downfield. Don't be scared of the deep interception if it's 40 yards down the field. I think that's what they have to continue to do. So I'm hoping this trend kind of stays in place moving forward because I think this is the recipe for success for this football team.
Yeah, I totally agree. And again, it's partially, field placement, where you're at the time, all that kind of jazz. But yeah, you can definitely tell that, like I said before, all the pieces are starting to come together. This is why we said don't smack the panic button. And, people were calling for Callahan's job in week 5, and we're all going, no, calm down. This is why. because when everything starts to click for everybody, it starts to look like this. And hopefully this will, if nothing else, carry a momentum into next season, because it looks like we're going to be in the middle somewhere in drafting, which is not great.
Yeah, just can't win for losing and can't lose for winning. It's it's a tough spot right now because the wins feel good. They do. I mean, the wins feel really good. It feels great to go to Houston after them talking and kind of putting a boot in their mouth. But yeah, it's somehow we always end up in this middle ground. So
yeah, you look at that draft pick and it
itself
went
out.
from number 2 overall to number 6 overall. It's like,
Yeah, which still isn't bad. Look, and I said it before, and I stand by it. I think if you're picking top 5, top 10, I think you're still
Top
in a really
10,
good position. Yeah, I think you're still in a really good position. You can get quality talent at that point. You know, even the 15, 16. If you draft well, you're gonna hit. And I think that Carthon, I think he's shown that he's pretty successful with his draft picks up to this point.
Yeah.
We're going to get to a couple of those here in a second, but yeah, I mean, if you're in that top 10 spot, I still feel really good about where they're at moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. And you said it, man. Rand has done well with his picks so far. Speaking of that, Trevondre Sweat.
Yep.
He finally got that sack, man. He's been so close for 2 or 3 weeks now. He's been so close. There's been 2 or 3. I've been like, oh, there it is. Nope. Damn. But got it this week, and he graded at a 73.7 on PFF, which I know a lot of people say 73 is nothing to brag about, but yes, it is when you're talking about interior defensive linemen. An 80 or above is elite in that grading system. So there you go. 73, not so bad. That's, upper end of the league. So really happy for him. He got his first sack, and he played really well.
Yeah, the interior between Simmons and Sweat, I mean, we talked about it coming into this season. It can be an absolute game wrecker, and we saw that in this one. Even the stuff that doesn't go down in the stat sheet, I mean, the pressure was there. They were in his face. They were an absolute menace against this interior offensive line. I mean, look, I go back to my notes from last week. I said you've got to have 4 more sacks. Every game they've lost, it's been 4 more sacks. And you've got to hold him under 20 yards. You got to be able to contain Stroud. You get 4 sacks, you keep him at 18 yards. So the defense did exactly what I wanted them to do as far as the line and pressure. And yeah, I mean, Sweat, he just continues to show up, show that he's conditioned so that he can stay in the games. When he's beside Simmons and they're having a day like that, it's pretty unstoppable. There's not a lot you can do against those 2 guys.
Yeah, and I got to talk about my dude, Big Jeff. Well, I wanted to say that Sweat, one of the things coming into the season was talking about his conditioning. I think that is completely put to rest now.
Yep.
He's played almost every snap that Jeff has, so, and I guess some more because, Jeff was a game or 2 games. Anyway, Big Jeff has been playing out of his mind since he got back from that injury. According to PFF, he has 29 pressures, 1 in all interior defensive linemen, and he's 3rd in run stops with 14. Big Jeff is back. Mm-hmm. Although, I don't know. I didn't see it. I mean, yes, he got the sack in this game, but for me, Trevondre Sweat played much better than Jeffrey Simmons in this one game. A couple games before this, yeah. They're just not showing up on the stat sheet, He's getting really close to sacks. He's just not quite getting there. He's forcing the quarterback out of the pocket. He's nailing the running back in the backfield. He's just not quite getting there.
Well, and to his credit, I think a lot of what he's doing is helping Sweat make some of these plays. Like, he's not getting home every time, but he's causing enough attention and getting in the backfield enough that he's drawing extra attention from this offensive line, which opens Arden Key up. I mean, he had another good week, which opens Landry up. Like, if you look on the safety, I think Simmons has the initial pressure, and then that forces him to roll out, and then
Yep.
Landry's right there waiting. So, I mean, he's showing up and doing his job and helping other guys make plays. And that's all you can ask for. I mean, I think this defensive line as a whole is becoming pretty cohesive. They're learning how to play off each other. So yeah, I mean, I can't be mad at his play. There were some times where, a couple weeks ago, I kind of questioned his energy that he was given every single time. But at the end of the day, he's still an elite player. He still causes a problem for offenses, and it's been shown if you get the right pieces around him, like Sweat, you can have a pretty good defensive line.
Yeah, and we have to. I don't have to, but I give credit that Harold Landry got the safety.
Mm-hmm.
I say that with such a sarcastic look on my face because that's really all he did, other than I think there was one pass defended that he had that I thought was pretty good. But other than that, I just wasn't. And Harold Landry has not impressed me this season. So, yay and damn it at the same time, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, not living up to what we thought we would see. We came back last year after the injury, looked pretty solid. Been a little bit of a quiet start. I definitely think on that safety, it was right place, right time kind of thing for him. So I don't know. I mean, it's hard to evaluate how the injury affected him. I don't know if he's still kind of figuring that out. But look, this is a pretty highly paid player that is expected to produce on this team. And, it'll be interesting to see because I think going into this offseason and into next year, I think there's going to be competition there. They're going to bring in some younger talent, and he's going to have to prove that he's still got what it takes to be the starter on this team. And maybe that's what it takes. I mean, maybe that's what it is for him. Maybe he just needs a fire lit under him. But yeah, to your point, just not the production that I expected this year to this point.
Yeah, I will say, just quick note, I didn't even jot this down, but it just made me think of it while you were talking about it. Did you see Jalen Harrell just completely outrun the left tackle and get right in Stroud's face and cause an incomplete pass? I thought that was beautiful.
Yep.
Those are the plays, though. Those are the plays we're talking about. They don't show up on a stat sheet. That's considered a pressure, and that's it. That's, it's not a very flashy stat, but it's there, and it made an incompletion.
Yep. Yeah, well, and to that, I mean, something else I wanted to get to was the turnovers, the forced turnovers by this defense. I mean, I thought Brownlee played a heck of a game. I mean, you saw him with the pass breakups and then the interception. I thought that he's everything I hoped he would be. He really does look like a young L'Jarius Sneed. So those comparisons were legit. And look, this is a guy who's getting targeted. I mean, they're attacking this secondary, and they just keep showing up and doing what they're supposed to do. So yeah, the one knock I'm going to give to this team is you finally found a way to generate turnovers. You have to go score points on those turnovers. I think they had 3 points on 3 turnovers. So you've got to find a way to be a little bit better at that, take advantage of those short fields. And look, that falls on the offense. But to the defense's credit, I think they did pretty much what they were supposed to do this week, put in some tough spots, able to overcome it. Just finally good to see these guys make plays. I mean, this is what you've been waiting on. You've been waiting on for these kind of breakout games. And I thought Brownlee, he looked really special this week.
Yeah, I agree. I love the Brownlee interception. He had 3 pass defended this week. It looked, man. He is really turning into a great player. He's physical, not afraid to stick his nose in there against a big running back or anything like that. It's all over the ball. He's a ball hawk. I really, really, really like Brownlee. And I thought it was funny because we were talking last show when we were talking about this game in the pre, how one of the things that we have to do almost every game is if you win the turnover battle, you win the game. we did not win the turnover battle in this game, but we still won the game, which is all that really matters. I don't really care about the turnover battle as long as we win. But it makes it a lot easier, is my point, damn it. But the best defensive performance, and I gotta give it to my man, because we gave him serious crap after last game. I think that he had 3 receptions on 3 attempts last week, and one of them was a touchdown. Kenneth Murray shows up huge. Sack leader. I always talk about the sack leader. I cannot help it. I'm sorry. I just like hits. But this dude not only was he tackle, not sack, tackles. Not only was he the tackle leader, but he also had 2 passes defended and 1 interception that was super sweet. Kenneth Murray, ladies and gentlemen.
Did you see where they moved positions? Like they moved him. So he normally plays that weak side linebacker role. They moved him to Mike, and that he looked like a totally different player. I mean, I don't know. They swapped him and Baker. So the side he's usually playing on, they moved him to the other side. And then he goes and gets an interception. He leads in tackles. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's his new spot. Maybe that's his new
he needs
role.
to stay there. Then.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, I mean, credit to the coaching staff. I mean, you have to think that had something to do with it. But being able to move him around, get him where he's comfortable, huge day for him. I just want to see, again, continue that consistency, continue to do it. But I hope that's something we see staying in place as we move forward.
Yeah, and something else I really wanted to point out, Denard Wilson, and I don't know if that was him, but I'm sure he had a hand in that. But Denard Wilson is a defensive genius. He started off week 1. His secondary was L'Jarius Sneed, Awuzie, McCreary, Amani Hooker, and Quandre Diggs. Last week, he had Jarvis Brownlee Jr., Darrell Baker Jr., Roger McCreary, Mike Brown, and Daryl Worley. And they're still ranked as the number 1 defense in passing yards allowed. That is sick.
Mm-hmm.
Sick. And like I said, I really thought he would use his safeties a lot more, but I think that's just because we don't have the right talent at safety.
I think that's just personnel, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's more of a personnel thing, but I cannot wait to see him, what he really, can do with more talent. But
yeah, and I mean, it's not understated they were without Amani Hooker.
Coach.
That was not expected to have Amani Hooker out. He comes in with an illness right there at pregame warmup. So for them to come out, look, that's a huge part. Just as it goes to getting guys where they're supposed to be. I mean, he's a pivotal part of that defense. To be able to come out and have the performance they did, missing him, which was completely unexpected. I mean, the way that the game plans had to change, I imagine, were pretty drastic. So credit to him for figuring that out on the fly. I thought that was huge.
Yeah, and there was a couple busted plays. And if you noticed, the players that were having trouble in the secondary were the safeties. There was a couple times where the safeties bit on a play or didn't see a receiver. But doesn't matter. We won in Houston. Right. We beat the Houston Texans. We took back our fans. I'm sorry. I can't help it, man. That is hilarious to me. I don't know how do you take back your own city? I had a guy say something kind of cross to me today on social media about that. And I was like, I'm sorry. I don't remember Amy Adams Strunk ever coming out and claiming that we've taken Nashville. Why?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, whatever hypes them up. I mean, look, you're sure. on a losing streak now. I guess you need whatever you can get, whatever you can take. So we'll see again in a few weeks. See how that works out for you.
Houston has dropped 3 out of the last 6 games.
Yep.
If I was in Houston, I don't know that I'm ready to hit the panic button yet as if I was a Texans fan, but I would be right on the verge. Yep. I can understand why there were fans literally yelling at the players and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, yeah. Most of those fans were thinking, "Do you have any idea what we're going to have to put up with on social media from these Titans people for the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever, until we play them again?" Oh
Yep.
man,
Yeah,
I
and
don't
like
feel
you said, I
bad
mean,
for them though.
well, and for it to be a road game, I mean, at least next time you've got them at home. I mean, you've got the hard part over with. I think there will be a lot of things that you try to utilize in the next game that you've got on tape with this one. So yeah, I mean, again, I mean, looking at Houston's schedule, like they're just now going into the rough part of it, and you drop 3 straight now. I don't know. It's it's gonna be a rough road. It's gonna be a rough road. I mean, I really, and again, I'm not saying I'm not one of those guys like, so you're saying there's a chance, but I'm very serious when I say like this division is still very, very much wide open. I mean, the Colts
Yeah,
just
it's
lost. You can come out losing maybe 9 or 10 games and take this division. Like that is becoming a real possibility.
yeah. Cynthia Freud. I don't know if you know who that is, but she's a mathematician that writes for the NFL and gives statistical analysis. But she comes up with a lot of percentages and stuff that are very accurate. She's a great. She's a mathematician. She was got her doctors in math. I don't even know how you do that, but anyway, she said that last week we had a 0.5% chance to make the playoffs, and like a 0.2% of the division, I think it was, or maybe it was a 0.7% of the division. It was either just a little bit above it or a little bit below it to win the division. Basically, no chance.
Mm-hmm.
So this week, it's like 22% chance of
Yeah,
hitting the
absolutely.
division and 15% chance of hitting the play. I mean, our numbers just, they didn't double. They didn't even quadruple. They like went like times 10. I don't know what that is in math words because I'm not a mathematician, but I bet you Cynthia Freud would.
Yep. Yeah, that's just it. You know, it's possible. It's possible. So I don't think this division has a wild card team. You know, whoever gets in is going to have to win it outright. But this was the first step. I'll put it that way. You accomplished the first step. You have a lot of divisional games coming up. You just got to make the most of those opportunities. So stay tuned. It ain't over.
Math words. What the hell? All right, guys. Well, good show. Good show. Excited. You know, Turkey Day's coming up. I hope everybody, with their families, enjoy eating turkey and watching the Lions win on Thanksgiving for maybe the first time ever. No, I think they won last year. But the point is, Lions are actually good and Dallas sucks, which is funny. But we got some good football, some good eats. But that brings us to the fact that we are not going to be here on Thursday, which is our regular night. I don't think we've actually locked it down yet, whether we're going to do a show on Wednesday night or not. But we're definitely not shooting Friday or Saturday. So either we're doing a show Wednesday night or we're not going to have a pre-show this week.
Yeah, we'll definitely figure it
update
out.
you.
Yep, stay tuned with us. Obviously, I think what is it? Commanders next week, another team on a 3-game losing streak. So they're you're going to their place. They're going to be hungry for a win. No pun intended with Thanksgiving. But stay tuned with us. We'll definitely let you guys know. Until then, happy Thanksgiving. Everybody enjoy it. Have a safe holiday, and hopefully we'll talk to you before then. I think we'll figure something out.
Yes, and thank you for hanging out with us if you have the whole time. I'm sorry. No, I'm not. Thank you again. We appreciate it. If you're not sub to our YouTube channel, what are you doing, man? Great stuff on there. What was it? Every Will Levis sack is a video. I think that's coming out tomorrow, but I've got a bunch of cool videos, and the only way you see them is if you go to YouTube. So get sub to our YouTube, like, subscribe, share it around. Again, thank you for being with us this whole time. We love you. Newsom had to get one in there. I'll be at the game. I'll run on the heck yeah, man. Do that, please.
Somebody's
for the love of God. Yeah, I was gonna say, do that and then run out there and block for Stonehouse because he could use some help right now with his confidence. Anyway, Thank you guys. Tighten up.
Tighten up.
Peace out.